Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is Sam. I got half of the trucks lined up today, but I have all the generations. First gen, second gen, third gen, fourth gen. The Cummins turbo diesel, the Dodge Ram lineup. I'm not going to consider the new 19, 20, and 21 Beyond trucks as a fifth gen quite yet, because realistically, they did some stuff under the hood, but in visual, it is just a front end clip swap. They just have a new hood, fenders, lights and stuff like that. Pretty much the same thing they did in 06 with the third gens, and everybody still calls those third gen trucks. So let's start with where it all started from. I finally have a first gen so I can complete the lineup. I never really kind of planned on this, and I never really planned on having all white trucks. They just kind of end up that way. I don't know how it happened. These two fell into my lap. I searched all over the country for a 5500 that had a stick shift in it. Got that one out of Texas. And then that one, I just happened to go by the lot and they had it sitting there, and I was like, you're coming home. And somehow that thing is white too. I don't know. I went there for a camel one, ended up leaving with the white one. I don't know what happened. That's what they had when I was there. So if anybody had that question. But let's talk about the old first gen, because I finally got one of these things. And the reason I'm making this video now is because I'm going to be selling this one. Hopefully it'll be gone this week. And then I can start working on the second gen and sell it. Thin the flock out a little bit. But Dodge had been running this same freaking truck for a number of decades. And back, in the day, if you wanted to tow any kind of weight with your pickup truck, you had to do it with a gas engine. So you had to get a big block to have any kind of authority to pull, a reasonable load with it. So, you get like a 440 in this thing, or 360. 360 would have been meh. 440 gasser would have been a guzzler, but it would pull a good load. But somebody came up with the idea to put a 360 turbo diesel Cummins in that thing. 5.9. And lo and behold, great success. But the thing about these trucks that really sucked is they were running the same transmission that had been in the truck for years. They had that 3-speed automatic 727. They did have an option for the 5-speed, but to talk about, downfalls of the Dodge Ram lineup was that 727. This one has a 518, which is pretty much a 727 with an overdrive added to it. Non-locking torque converter, nothing to really be, stoked about. The 5-speed would have been a lot more valuable of a truck. When you think about these trucks and look at them and consider this is just an old truck, nobody really cares about it. Same thing with this one, and hell, that one's might be getting old in somebody else's opinion. But you think about it, old muscle cars a couple years ago, you can get them for relatively cheap. But when muscle cars were like 30 years old, you can get them really cheap. But now that they're like 50 years old, they are like 10 to 15 times what they costed brand new for just a shell. I'm not saying these things are going to go up in value like that and become complete collector's items, but the way that carbon emissions and everything's going on in this country, that thing for this state of California, which is weird, is completely smog exempt and does not fall under any of the jurisdiction, and so does some of the second gens. So on that standpoint alone, these trucks are growing in value, especially in the state of California. And the fact, if other states wanted a clean truck that wasn't routed out, California and Texas and a couple other places have some nice ones to offer. But then lo and behold, they ran this truck from 89 to 93. That's what's on 93. It's actually got an intercool on it. Early ones didn't even have intercooled. But they pretty much took some of the good stuff and they put it in this one. A second gen, which was a nice, sleek, aerodynamic. It doesn't have leaf springs. It's got coil front suspension, so it's actually nice and comfortable of a ride. And one thing I didn't know is that truck right there, if you wanted to wire in a trailer brake, it wasn't a simple plug and play into a wiring harness like later second gens were. You actually had to get out the freaking cutters and start cutting into your wires and tap into your trailer brake switch and stuff like that, or brake pedal switch so you can have trailer brakes. They didn't even think about that back in the day. They're like, oh, you guys want to tow? Well, get out a pair of cutters and some wire nuts and then put it all together, because that's what a lot of old cowboys did in that stuff. But these ones, you actually had a plug-in on it. They still had the same transmission. That same transmission they ran in the muscle car era, the 3-speed automatic, they put an overdrive on it. Went from a 727 to the 4-speed with overdrive, called a 518. Then they went to second gen, pretty much the same freaking thing, and they called it a 47. And then in third gens, they called it a 48. That gave Dodge a really crappy reputation with their automatic trans, because in stock form, that transmission sucked. Especially the first gen, because it didn't have any lockup, it didn't have any... These Cummins, they like the low-end grunt. And even if you got a low stall torque converter, it's still it sucked. There's just, I ain't gonna go into that, but these ones actually still offered a 5-speed on it, and I'll tell you the horsepower is here in a second of what these trucks came with stock. And another thing that people didn't know is I get this question a lot. Not so much in the last couple months, but for a little while I did, is people were asking me where I was getting my 3rd gen mirrors for 2nd gens. These are stock mirrors, guys. I don't know what the confusion was. The flip-up tow mirrors, they started on the 2nd gens. So that was just one little thing I wanted to point out. I think when they really started pouring on the sauce is when they went to 3rd gen 5.9 with the common rail, because those old faithfuls were pretty nice, but 2nd gen they started messing with the EGR stuff. They got away with that, and when we went to 3rd gen with the common rail, this is actually a 6.7, not the 5.9, but with the 5.9 common rail, was probably like the best variation the Dodge Ram truck ever had to offer, in my opinion, that could just do whatever you wanted. It had great towing capability. It was a very reliable truck. The only thing that they really wanted right from the factory would be a good lift pump with good filtration on it, because early common rails, they didn't understand that you need to clean fuel to run it through the high pressure common rail injectors. So get a good lift pump on them, and you can throw a simple tune on it. You get a Smarty Senior for like $500-600, and it will throw an extra 100 horsepower onto it, and it would wake that truck up so much. And it was a very easy thing to do, because all they had was catalytic converter. You know, some 12 valves, they even had a non-cooled EGR. They were just dumping straight exhaust into it. But for some reason, they went to a 3rd gen. It burned clean. Like, you could have such a clean burning 3rd gen 5.9. They were awesome. I freaking love those things. I would like to find a 5.9 dually, like an 05 with 6-speed. That would be an ideal truck to have, just to have, because I think those are going up in value quite a bit, because the stick shift trucks have always had their value held a little better. That's just the way it is. And but they ran that same transmission all the way up until they switched to the 6.7 on one of these, and that's when they introduced the ISN. And here's one point that I want to make that nobody really grasped, or at least some people on a forum that I was reading, is the 5500 and 4500 Dodge Ram trucks, they didn't start in 4th gens. They started in 3rds. There was a lot of confusion on one post that I was reading about that. So in 2008, 2009, and 2010, Dodge Ram in a 3rd gen, you could get a 4500 or a 5500 truck. Very reliable truck when stuff was taken off of it. I'll say that much. Early emissions trucks, terrible. Terrible. Low on power, and especially cabin chassis, because they derated them. So how it went with horsepower, even though that one's got an automatic in it, the 1st gen is 160 horse. Not bad. It actually gets up and goes a lot better than I thought. With stick shift in this one, 235. That's a pretty big jump in power. Like, damn. For just a couple of years, that's a pretty big jump. This one, derated at 305, which is still a pretty big jump from that one, which would have only been 7-year difference. And that's derated. This truck, if it wasn't a cabin chassis with a 3500 or something like that, would have been a 350 horse truck, because they still valued the stick shift trucks as a high output in those years. When they went to 4th gen, this one with the ISN high output, max tow, all the fun stuff, 385 horsepower, and then 930 foot-pounds of torque. I don't know what the torque would have been on those things. That would have been like 400 on the ISN, full 4. Like, you really, if you wanted a good tow rig, you have to get the 3500 with the ISN in it. 18, I think, in my opinion, the best truck that they had is for the 4th gen would be 15, 16, 17, and 18, because they had the fuel filtration pretty much ironed out. They got a good filtration system on these trucks. I have no complaints with that. I've always worried about common rails up until the 4th gens, because they have that figured out. Emissions related issues, knock on wood, were some damn wood. I don't want to have to do something that I don't want to do. Pretty much sorted out. This truck is doing great so far. And they were still running a CP3 pump, which is what they've been running on common rails for the longest time. That was like the best reliability that you could come up with these trucks at that time. In 19, they went to a CP4 with a different block. They got a lot more power. 20, a lot more power. 21, they switched back to the CP3, so maybe that will be the new squeeze. That is an awesome truck. In 2023, I will be buying a new 5500 guaranteed, because California is going to put the kibosh on that one. I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to put it in either a storage container, or I'll put it on a, my Nevada property, and I'll just keep running it when I want to. But in lump sum, that is just overall the goofy variations that I've noticed with those. They have all grown in leaps and bounds since the first gen. First gen is fun to tow with, but is kind of scary if you've towed with one of these. Because face it, this truck here, towing that 8,500 pound trailer, something like that, it doesn't even notice it when it's empty. You put 20,000 pounds on the deck, it starts to notice it. But in reality, it handles it completely, perfectly fine. First gen, I know it wasn't rated to tow anywhere near that. But if you put 10,000 pounds behind this thing, it squats like a pig, and it's got a slip and torque converter. It's got no power. A lot of people want me to take the cab off of that and put it on there so I can continue running that truck, and that would be fun, but it's just completely unreasonable and not practical, because for one, I can still run that truck in any other state. If I decide to move, what am I gonna do? I got a first gen on a crew cab, screwed up everything. No way, no how. But anyway, I just wanted to make this video. It's probably a good rambling video if you made it this far down the line. Who's excited to buy the first gen and the cowboy truck? First gen is 100% ready to rock and roll, and this is going to be a little teaser for you guys. If you made it this far, comment below giggity giggity when you hear this thing fire up, because I did something to it and it is freaking awesome. You ready? Yeah, she's straight pipe now. That's why these things grow up in value, because you can straight pipe the freaking first gens. You know how long it took us to straight pipe that thing? All about 10 minutes. You know how long it'd take you to straight pipe a third gen or a fourth gen? All of about 4 freaking hours. If you know what you're doing. And you're not using a sawzall, because the new stuff is actually designed to come apart, because they expect it to fail because it's emissions and it sucks. But I'll tell you what, this thing has 3 times the power that first gen does on paper, and going down the road it's got 10 times the power. And about 55 times more braking force. And I got cooled seats, heated steering wheel. I can start this thing from anywhere in the country with my cell phone. All right, these things have gone a long way. Oh yeah, and the steering on a first gen was, you couldn't really turn that sharp, but you did have nice luxuries at that time. Power windows, power mirrors. This bad boy ran on R12 refrigeration, so you had good AC. A lot of things back in the day were actually quite a bit better, because they didn't think they were bad for the environment. I don't know if one of these trucks might have caused the downfall in diesel, because people were just doing whatever they wanted running these things and not having to answer to nobody, which I'm completely fine with. Listen to that tractor engine. Just listen to it. Tractor engine. That's what this thing was, damn industrial engine. One thing to note about 5.9 Cummins and all that is this thing came out of tractors, skidders, big excavators, stuff that was like big generators that did some pretty demanding stuff. And even today, if you got a 10-wheel truck, you could have it with a 6.7 Cummins in it. You could go up to 50,000 pounds gross with the 6.7 Cummins. So when they think a pickup engine, oh no, that's too small of an engine to be hauling that kind of weight. What the hell? They're doing that with a freaking big rig. Get with the program, people. I don't know if they're doing that with Duramaxes and power throw-ups, but comment below. We'll see you.